Un, dos, tres, probando.
Sí.
Un, dos, tres, probando.
Sí.
Un, dos, tres, probando.
Hola, buenos días a todos.
Hi
Vamos a
to everyone.
presentar
We're going to present one of the films in the official section in the competition in the 71st edition of the San Sebastian Film Festival, the Práctica, a film by Martín REJTMAN. And to present it, we have, as you can see, a significant part of the team, cast and crew, from my right all the way to the end. Fernando Bascuñán, producer. Joaquim Safino, producer. Christoph Friedel, producer. CAMILA, HIRANE, actress. Martín REJTMAN, director of the film. ESTEBAN, BIGLIARDI, actor. Jerónimo QUEVEDO, producer. FLORENCIA, LARREA, producer. And GIANCARLO, NASI, producer. Given that there are a lot of you here on the panel, I'm going to allow the audience to start, or the journalists to start, ask their questions. First one in the front row.
Hola.
Hi, I'm over here. Congratulations for the film. I had a great time. And I'd like to ask you about the relationship you have with yoga. Why did you use yoga to drive the full film? Whether you know how to do yoga. Did you know how to do yoga before or not? But you didn't have to do yoga. But did you know how to do yoga before, or how did you address the issue? I've been practicing yoga since 1996, and I regularly practice yoga, Stanga yoga, very advanced positions. Now I'm doing it a bit less because I have less time. However, but I've been practicing yoga for many years, and I thought, to a certain extent, mixing this with cinema was a good idea, and that's the result in the film. Esteban didn't practice yoga when we commenced with the project, but he had time to prepare himself. And he can tell us something about that. Yes, I had time, and I started to, go to lessons and to concentrate in some of the positions that were necessary for certain scenes, especially standing on my head, for example. This was very important to enter into the world of a yoga teacher. And by the way, I recommend you all do yoga. It's very intense and it's very strong and powerful. And it gives you a lot of air, and it's good for breathing and to extend your muscles. And for several months, the film had time, whether it was going to be at one time or another. So therefore, I had time, a couple of years, to practice yoga, yes. The fact I was practicing this morning, when I got up this morning, so it's true, yes, it is. Very fortunate to do a film that obliges you. The training is to do yoga for the film. Imagine how good. The others have got to eat junk food, but in this case, such is not the case. But I prefer those which make you practice yoga. Another question here. Hi. Congratulations for the film as well. I want to ask you about the acting work when reciting, shall we say, all of the dialogues and the text of the film, because I think it's very difficult the way you do it. I'm not sure the word is a bit aseptic, because I notice it very neutral perhaps, but albeit, having said that, as a spectator, at certain moments I laughed, and other moments I felt something else. It conveys a lot. As is, everything is neutral. How did you do all of that work vis-a-vis the dialogues? The question for me or for you? Do you want to? No, I'll answer. No. There's a big challenge and a big adventure from a performance standpoint, and also all of the actors, because to a certain extent, Martín is seeking a range or a performance frequency, a frequency of performance which is circumscribed to a tone that he wants in each text, because the texts are rehearsed from a lot beforehand, so we can achieve the specific tone that he listened to or the sound that he wants to convey, especially when he was writing the script. So there's a lot of direction on his behalf of how we had to say the dialogues. Initially, it might seem it's taking away freedom, that it reduces your possibility in a scene or hand movements or to look for tones or generate any type of effects. But what we end up discovering, we actors, and that's the first time that I've worked with him, is that in that range or that frequency in performing, there's a world on its own. That is to say, it provides you the possibility, when you've got full freedom to perform, sometimes the decision you make may be right or wrong. But when you've got the full ranges, all the resources to the actor. But in this case, within the musical frequency, you've got to convey, and the dialogues convey something. And looking at Martín's films, once at the beginning you say, what the hell is this all about? And then all of a sudden you start to understand the music that he's trying to achieve, and that tells the story. I'm not too sure whether you've understood what I'm trying to say. Camila, yes, a few months back there was a retrospective that was done with Martín in Buenos Aires, and to which I was very fortunate to participate in. And we were talking about the style of Rechmanian, that is a style. Martín still is almost a cult cinema, and the style of acting associated to his film, which has a lot to do, what you say, with the way of talking, with the musicality of the text and the films of Martín. There's a musical composition in his mind, just like you said. It's a way of acting. There are theater companies in Chile that use as a reference this type of Rechmanian, that's his style of film, which has to do with the way of talking. Does they finish at the end of the phrases or instead of going up, going down, and close them off, which brings about a specific sense of humor of his cinema, which has to do with this. I think that's a very Rechmanian remark that you've made. I think it has to do of closing the phrases that brings back a neutral tone. This has to do with perhaps that the characters don't question or doubt. They do things without doubting. That's to say, what they say with a lot of security, without saying hey or ho or whatever. That is, without doubting anything that they say. That's why the text should be done without any doubts at all. And most of the work with the actors consists in those rehearsals, and that's where you learn the text. At the same time, we rehearse the scenes. We learn the words and the musicality of the text. And this is something, as he was saying, that when I write it, the scene consists of that, basically. I'm more important when in the editing. I'm not only the dialogues and the sounds, but the musicality, and to know whether it's okay. I don't need to even look at the image to know whether it's right or wrong, if that's what I'm looking for vis-a-vis the dialogues. Another question here. Yes, over here. Good afternoon, Jonte Moricero from GPS Audiovisual. On the one hand, I'd like to ask you, Martín Rickman, whether the film has to do with an issue of nowadays, which are dogmas. That's a day to follow dogmatic attitudes in practices which are free or which introduce freedom to human beings, such as in this case is yoga, or could be yoga. And as I'm seeing so many producers here as well, I'd like whether you could tell us what was it like to produce this film, because the production behind the film, because it's truly international in the most ample sense of the word. Okay. The dogmas, I think that in the film, I don't think that we're not dealing with dogmas so much, because yoga is not taken so dogmatically, I believe. Gustavo, at a certain moment, stops practicing yoga and he goes to the gym, and going to the gym causes the same effect or more so than yoga. And it seems to me that we're playing a bit with that, I think. And Gustavo never has a mystical experience. There's a rock which seems to levitate at a certain moment, and the rock, but it seems to me, I'm not too sure I see so much of that dogma, or it's nothing that I'd thought about or think about or thought about when I wrote the script. And vis-a-vis the production experience, I think there are people that are more capable than me to talk about this. Let's take a full advantage of the producers. It was a very long process. First of all, who was involved was Christoph, who works with me, working with me for 20 years, since Puentes Mágicos, and he's a friend and producer. And he always supports all my projects, and he was the first person that saw the script and got very enthusiastic about it. And then JOAQUIM came along, and then Florencia on the Chilean side, GIANCARLO, Fernando, and then El Puma, and Jerónimo, and Vicky. Am I forgetting anyone? No. Okay, we're all here. So therefore, they could probably tell you something about this. Let's start with Christoph, chronologically.
¿Puedo hablar en inglés? ¿Puede ser?
Sí, tienen traducción. Ellos tienen traducción simultánea.
Yes.
So, like Martin says, we've been working together for a long time. And this, of course, in Argentinian film, you cannot finance fully out of Argentina, so you need European help. And in this case, it's difficult because these European funds you need for these kind of movies, they don't understand, or this script is not what they normally look for, no? Not what they look from a European perspective from a film from far away. So it was not easy. So there was a lot of, also the humor is not, people sometimes didn't get the humor. We told them it's a comedy, they didn't believe. And also this kind of intellectual way of doing a comedy was not an easy sell in the beginning. So that's why it took us a long time, and it took us a large group of people. And unfortunately, this is more and more the reality of these art house films we are doing, that we need more countries, because we can find money, but a lot of money, more and more money is linked to spendings. And if an artist like Martín wants to do an Argentinian film taking place in Chile, it was not so easy for us to find the money. What as a group we managed. It was not always easy, but that's why we are very proud to be here.
The big difficulty was also that the film takes place in Chile. And I am an Argentinian director that my whim was to shoot a film in Chile. I went to Chile for many years to practice yoga in a yoga retirement in the north of Chile in a valley, and that's where the story stems from in the film. And that's when I said I wanted to shoot in Chile, and we managed to do it. From Chile we can say that it was an honor to have Martín. Cinema shouldn't have nationalities. We have got to be capable to be free and to tell stories in different countries with different characters and different cultures. And so the truth was, it was very pleasant to participate, at least on our behalf. I think that the Martín cinema is very special because it provides a barrier, an ideological barrier, so therefore it proposes not guiding ourselves based on ideology, the question you were asking. And for us in Portugal, this has been the motivation behind it, to make a film which is not normal, shall I say, or everything occurs in nightmares. This film, for example, your definition as an artist, as an author, this is something that has driven us, that is to say, how to contain or to preserve this voice that from the outset, this issue has always been difficult to do propaganda of this thing, that and the other. The yoga vehicle, as Martín has said, is very good because he empties it and allows us with the film to confront, we have to decide what we have to decide upon. So therefore I think it's a very special film, and in our case, I think all of us to be able to make it has been a dream in itself. So I'm very thankful to have been able to participate. I'm going to talk because I was the last one to come along to enter into the project, where the Argentinian side of the project was developed, Unión de los Ríos, and finally we added up with Puma in order to do the pre-production and the shooting. As you know, that in Argentina, to organize or make a film completely with state subsidy or grants is practically impossible. And I think that in a certain way, not only the international aspect of the film has to do with the support of producers and friends that MART has generated over the years, but also because it's a compulsory need so that we can continue to make films in our country, because otherwise the situation in this sense is quite complicated. And in this sense it was twofold, because the aid to do it and to work with great producers, that we're able to finally make this such an international film, as you suggested in the question. Florencia, do you want to add something? Well, I just would like to say that this film was constructed with Martín in Chile, for example, and it was very interesting. And with Puma we did a short film, and we were also here with that short film, and Martín started to transform in. He's got more friends than we have in Chile, and I feel that the experience above all of the actors, we were talking about the actors, it was very important. This was important for most of the Chilean casting. I felt they grew very much. They all came out saying, well, it had been one of the most difficult experiences in their lives, but also very happy. And of course, we're very happy with the result. And that's it. And I want to thank Martín for the trust he has put us in this very long journey, but we're very happy. And for the patience as well. Hi, me again. I'd like to ask whether there's been any difficulty vis-a-vis people hurting themselves, people for the earthquakes. Have there any problems in the shooting? No, no one got hurt in this film, shooting this film. No animals, no people, no any objects. Nothing was broken. I think a screen fell down, if I'm not mistaken. So, any question here? Hi. Talk about the character of the mother. The mother was important. She comes, destroys and structures. At the same time, she comes and goes. Why this character of the mother? The character is what Gustavo left in Argentina. The only thing that's left in Argentina in Gustavo after so much time is his mother, who insists in him return. The actress is Mirta Ugeli. She's very well known in Argentina, with whom I've already worked in several films. I felt like working with her again, so the experience was excellent to take her to Chile for a couple of days. And it was almost an earthquake for the whole shoot, because it was quite complicated. But because she's great, but it was very nice for all of us. Does she construct or structure or destruct? What does she do? Yes, she starts at the beginning, in the middle, and the end of the film. It's as if she's always trying to bring him back or go and visit him to help him. It's like the overprotection or maternal overprotection. And I imagine mothers are a bit like that, aren't they? Constructive and destructive. Alicia, question? Hi, Alicia Garcia from Agencia F. I had a great laugh, that's my question. Comedies are very well received by the audience, but in festivals they don't win too many awards. That's the genuine reality. I'd like to know why they chose comedy to carry out this internal force that you have, and also to talk about the film is all of a sudden stops dead. And it's not very funny because it's like Buster Keaton. He falls down he falls down like Buster Keaton does in the sewage. Well, that happened to me in Chile, by the way, yes. The day before of going to this yoga retirement in the Elfi Valley, I went to sleep in the house of a friend, and a house very similar to where the character of Gustavo goes. And several people, there was a girl that I didn't know. I said, let's go to the restaurant. I said, okay, let's go. And we came back from the restaurant looking for a taxi, and I fell in a drainage. And the next day, I went to the yoga retirement, and I took some ibuprofen, I took some medicine. I hurt my leg, but I was able to practice without any problems. But the story stems from there, from that situation. I'm sorry we can't hear the person who's speaking now because she doesn't have a microphone. The therapist who knows everything but doesn't... But that's the way I write. If I don't have fun writing, it's as if for this film, what happens with all the scenes I needed to have a good laugh while I was writing. In general, I make films with humor. I think this is the most comedian-like comedy genre. It's also a bit strange, but has the most amount of comedy of those that I make. Sometimes I try to escape comedy. In Dos Disparos, I tried to leave comedy, but I didn't manage to do it. The first part is not a comedy, and the second part is. But that's the genre that calls me, basically. And I'd like to work with that genre, but in a very impure way, not with a happy ending or with the typical rosy end, but it was noir comedy. I'm not too sure, but you said noir. Yes, that the REJTMAN style that we're talking about. I would also like to ask Jerónimo as well as you, Martín. Yesterday or a few hours ago, your compatriots were protesting because they were being threatened by something that's going against culture, because it's difficult to shoot with the aid grants you receive. Is someone contrary, is contrary to culture? How are you seeing yourselves vis-a-vis the future? Well, okay, the question helps to complete what I was saying before. That is to say, if the situation is complicated now, and there's a situation, a very significant, situation of financing with nationally, if the president in Argentina, Javier Milei, this is very a catastrophe, because what he promised was he's going to close the Cinema Institute and everything that's got to do with state grants for culture. As of the 10th of December, if this man is a president, that's the end, not only of this, but the 25 films and projects that are being presented in this edition in the San Sebastian Film Festival. Yesterday we took a photo with the presence of the director of the film festival, and with the support of the festival. There were more than 60 producers, directors and actors and actresses who are part of this is a record participation in these projects, and that's quite impressive, because probably next year there will not even be one film here. And I would like to add something. As Argentinian cinema, Inca has supported not only Argentinians, but for decades it's supported films from all Latin America and even Ibero-America. Spanish films are being financed with the Inca, so therefore it's been an unequal support. It's not only a struggle of Argentina, but all the region of Ibero-America. And in Spain, hopefully they will help you. All Spanish journalists and throughout the world can help us to put some pressure. International pressure helps to understand that cinema is not only a grant, but it's an investment, it's work, and it means growth. Yes, I completely agree. Yes, of course. Nothing to add. Well said. Yes, this Well, let's hope the worst thing doesn't happen. We're working, and if the worst thing doesn't happen, we continue to need, yes, what Martin has just said is very important, and that's what we discussed quite a lot. It's not only, it isn't resolved, but that Javier Milei is not a president in Argentina. We've got a lot of problems to see what's happening with the supporters culture. But the discussion, we want to have it with open ministries and an agreement where we can enter and discuss things. That's where the big difference lies. Hi again. I'd like to ask the director and the screenplay writer, you defined the film as a strange comedy. When you wrote the script, how many times did you go over and over, or versions, how many versions, or whether it came out in one go? They say, at what time do you decide to finish the film where it finishes or it ends? As a spectator, I felt a bit sadistic because I wanted to continue to see what happens to the main character and to see him once again fall into a drain pipe. So as my colleague says, because it makes us laugh, that's the way we are, and basically because of that, how did you do that vis-a-vis the script? Well, the script, in general, I only write one version, not different versions, but I take a long time to come to that final version. Once I come to that version, I don't change it. Neither do I change the shoot nor the editing. Everything's done the same way. It's quite risky, but that's the way in which I work. But yes, the script took a long time to write because I don't write with a plot which is already set up or structured, but the plot emerges when I write, as I write. So therefore, until the pieces fit together and make sense, and you structure and set up the story, this takes some time. I go more according to scenes, the characters and the situations, and then I started to organize them so I can find a story. And it took 2 or 3 years to write the script, yes. But the end was going to always be like that, as that is, it didn't change. And I can add, as a producer, it's really incredible to see the process, well, me as a producer, to see the script, see the shooting and the editing with Martin, as he is very faithful, shall I say, to that process, and how the method that he uses, he maintains it until the end. I learned a lot in that I'd never really been in a film where the comma in the script is in the shoot and it's subsequently in the editing room. So therefore, quite often there's a lot of or improvisation, which is also very good. But in this case, as a producer, it was great to see that process. So therefore, I'm very thankful to have learned that from Martin, and we can define it as something REJTMANian. We learn a lot when you make films from Martin, with Martin.
Hola, muy buenas.
Hi. Congratulate you all to be to be in the official section of the film, so with a plot dealing with yoga. I've done a lot of Bastanga yoga, and I felt ridiculized, for example, or ridiculed, because everyone's finding the solutions with yoga. There's a moment, as you said, the main actor goes to the gym and achieves a good result. But my question is, did you want people to? Did you want the audience to practice yoga at the end of the film? For people when they left the cinema, for them to want to practice yoga, or to be afraid of not practicing yoga because something might fall on them. Yes, I'd like everyone can leave the film theater. I'm not going to be very successful, because not even Esteban continues to practice after all the training he did to make the film. So we finished filming. I said, "They're going to continue practicing yoga?" And he said, "No." I don't know. I hope such is the case. But I'm not too hopeful about that. Another question here in the front row. Congratulations to all of you for the film. I'd like to ask Martin, I was reading that this could be your last film. Did you say that or not? No, that's a lie. No. It wears you out, and once is so tired. I always say it's going to be the last film I make. I always say that, and I say that convinced of myself. Someone just woke up, it seems. I don't know. I don't know. Perhaps it's the last one. Yesterday I wanted to film again. Yesterday I felt like wanting to film again. I'm concerned. He said he didn't want to film anymore, make any more films. I said, well, I act in his film. I'm the protagonist of the film, main character, and he doesn't want to film anymore. Made me feel guilty. It's great. It's a relief to think that yesterday said that the possibility exists of filming again or making another film. Sorry, we can't hear this without a microphone. No, because after a long trip, I went to the beach. I went for a swim at the beach here. At the end of the process, it's worthwhile making films and what the producers were saying, and to achieve the funding and that many years, and you go 2 steps forward and you take 3 steps back, so on and so forth. He's a director. It's not like an actor. Martin makes the films after so many years. So all of that time with a project in his mind, and then going, in this case, we had to move in 2 continents in order to film it. A film is always, it's very tiring and it wears you out, and especially for the producers and directors, not so much for the actors, because we enter into it later. We're not on the day-to-day of the setbacks and financing. Especially someone as hard-headed as me, I want everything to be the way it is, and those producers know what I mean. If it's not exactly the way I want it, I fight against everyone. I don't fight for me, I fight because of the film I want to make. So therefore it's a bit tough as well. I'm worn out, and not even the yoga relieves me. The sea did help me a little though. Are there any further questions? If there aren't any further questions, I would like to ask the director, Martín, and also extend it to the whole panel, all the people here. Alicia mentioned Buster Keaton when she gave the example of falling into the drain pipe. And then on the other hand, when in the film, something that we liked of the practice, La Práctica, was seeing comedies which are quite cynical. It seems that it's all very cynical humor and and with anger and with when you see a film like yours, you find a type of comedy which is yours, very personal, but connects with the comedy which is not being used much, which is addressed from other places, which doesn't have to do with this cynicism and anger. Let's say, I would like to ask the producers, why produce of a film like this now, beyond the value of it being a Martin Richtman film which has its own personal seal? And then out of curiosity to know your references in comedy, people who have influenced you, because as like Alicia, she detected there's something that's quite choreographic, a lot of silent film behind it, and Esteban could probably contribute something in his acting by using his body, specifically in this film. Well, physical humor is, I think it's the first time I've done something that is a falling into the drain, like very similar to Buster Keaton. I've never done anything like that before, but Buster Keaton's films from the outset, I've loved them. They've always been a very important reference for me. With the virtuosity it has, sometimes it's almost impossible to make films like that anymore. But in general, my references were more of American films with dialogues, Howard Hawks or Preston Sturges comedies. That was the first thing that I saw, and I said, well, the comedy, that's why I could do something along these lines. My first films practically had no dialogues, and I started to write films with dialogue. Later on, the dialogues turned into something very important in my films. And when I see the films like Preston Sturges, for example, I feel that there's something that really calls to me. Yes, thank you. And those films have that rhythm and speed that Martin uses, which is it's attractive for the spectator, for example, or the audience. One is behind what's really happening in the humor. So therefore, the film is advancing and you start to understand what has just happened, and it's like a big, I don't know how that works, we would have to study it, like a wheel, but the speed of the text as they're crossing and they're saying things without any apparent intention, they generate humor, which you start to realize it a bit later than when it really happens. That moment of comedy, as an actor performing like that, we're not acting in a comedy. The intention is to make, or to glimpse at the camera, or to turn at the right time, or to do something with a tone to cause that effect. We say like that and we advance, and that generates the comedy. And that residue from the previous scene, I think that's very funny. I've just realized what just happened, and something else is happening, and so therefore, and I laugh at what's happened in the back, and then there's an overlog, shall we say, of humor that's taking place. It's quite a curious effect. I think that it's very important to have listened to the people who have already seen the film and who said that they laughed and they thought it was funny, because I think unconsciously rebelling against what comedy is proposing nowadays, and even it works and it makes people laugh, and that the audience has a good time, which means that there's another way of making films and there's another way of making comedy which is possible. And this accompanies Martín's career and his initial films, to think that there's another way of making films, and these are forms that are effective and marvelous. And I also like to add something. It's also, this was said, and Christoph said this, how difficult it is to find a film in Europe is waiting for South America to sell marginality, to sell the story which is politically burdened. And also, there are a heap of other stories that are in South America that have to do, there is very particular humor in Buenos Aires, there's a very particular humor in Santiago, in Chile, the humor and comedy that have to do with our tragedy, our way of relating to such a painful history, or past. It's a humor, it's a political way of expressing oneself. And I think that to provide funding and a place to films, to comedies, or South American humor, I think is something which is quite attractive, especially by festivals. Well, if there are no further questions, oh look, there's another question. Question for the actors. I'd like to know, what does it mean to play a role in a film where it seems like it's a play? Camila's character, one day she's got a couple, and then she's with another guy, she's very changing. I'd like to know what was, and the character also of Esteban, that seems, he was a bit slow. Did that practicing yoga influence the character? Yes, it was a challenge. That's why we said Martín's film has its own personal seal or stamp on it, and one has to jump on the bandwagon, and Martín guides you. You've got to obey him, basically. It's not as if we'll see what we'll do, we'll see what happens. No, it's quite clear in your mind what Martín wants. And in that sense, the work is very contained and very guided and very contained, and that we're very thankful for this, and also to develop this Rechtmanian technique. It's very nutritional, and it helped me very much to understand a lot of things. I don't know rationally why this is so, but it was, for me, it made me grow a lot. And the reference, it happened to all the Chilean cast. It was a big challenge, and he's an Argentinian film director in Chile. He's very respected, and you go, wow, because you're a bit afraid. You've got to make the grade basically to what he wants and he requires. But I think Martín loves Chile and Chile loves Martín. Perhaps we had a great time as well shooting the film. It seems as if it was all tough. No, we had a great time, by the way. It was one of the funniest and pleasurable shoots I've ever had in my life. In Chile as well as in Portugal, because part of the film is filmed in Portugal, albeit it's not noticed. You can't notice it, but because everything happens in Chile, but it was very pleasurable. I mean, we had a very pleasant, let's say, for the team, for the cast as well as for the crew. That is to say, all of the Chilean team, and that part, the experience was marvelous. That's what I can say. We were quite fortunate that Martín wanted to tell his story in Chile. How fortunate for us Chilean actors we could participate in one of Martín's films, of an Argentinian film. It was marvelous. It was a great experience, and we're very happy. Thank you, Martín. Well, let's come to the end of the press conference, and I've been told, can we ask one more question? Just like before, you've talked about, you've talked about your references, previous references, when Esteban has talked about other films, of Latin American films, which are around this one and are not shown in festival due to the type of cinema which is considered a bit lighter or more comical. There's a type of cinema that it always reminds me to those of Martín REJTMAN, like for example, Lucía Celes or Federico Beiró, that I'm very interested in them. I'd like to ask you that know more about this issue, other authors or other films that you believe are especially interesting. Of nowadays, I recommend a film that El Puma was, Arturo 30 by Martín Xandi, which is very good, one of the best of the year. And Federico Beiró is going to come here to the viewing of La Práctica at 7 p.m. and I love his films, and Arturo a los 30. Another film. There are a lot of films. That's my remark, just to fit in that it does exist. Let us say, sometimes it's only a one-way look at things when something is happening in a region. The same in the most, shall we say, horrible places or scenarios. There's still love there, no matter how bad things are. No, we're not denying tragedy and what's taking place there, but it's also part in the bomb shelter, for example, there was love, and the only thing is, give us tragedy. That was what my reflection were going along those lines. We now have to finish the press conference. I'm going to thank the cast and crew, well, the producers and the cast and the director. Thank you for the film, and have a good luck this afternoon during the projection this afternoon. Thank you very much to all of you.